You know what they say about poking sleeping giants? We will apparently the Hegemony Council never got that memo. My name is Krix Vorthak, and I used to be a strategic intelligence analyst for the Galactic Hegemony. Used to be, because after what I witnessed, after what we unleashed, let's just say my Aretia remnant came a lot sooner than expected. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. Back when we thought we are the apex predators of the galaxy. Back when humanity was just another species to be catalogued, concocted, and forgotten. Oh, how magnificently wrong we are. It was cycle 203087 when the Hegemony first encountered the humans. A smoke oil blue terrain, world orbiting an unremarkable ULO star in what they call the Milky Way. The initial HFY reports we are laughably dismissive, bipedal mammals, relatively heavily new to space trek, squabbling among themselves. Have resources and territory. The xenobiologists classified them as a Class C species, manageable, exploitable, expendable. Admiral Gorthik Xanthus, may his atoms rot in the void, was assigned to HFY the human integration process. Integration. That's what we Aquasa willed it. Sounds so much more civilized than subjugation, doesn't it? The Admiral was a Corvethian, one of those hulking six-armed brutes who thought diplomacy was just war with partiality words. He took one look at the human assessment reports and decided that we aren't even worth a proper invasion. Instead, he opted for the economic approach. Why waste ammunition when you can simply encourage a species to surrender their resources voluntarily? The hegemony had perfected this technique over millennia, established trade or relations, to surrender dependency, gradually assume control of critical infrastructure then tighten the noose until they had no choice but to accept full integration. The humans, bless their have little hearts, welcomed us with open arms. We are so excited to meet other intelligent life, so eager to learn, to trade, to become part of something bigger than themselves. Their leaders practic a willy tripped over themselves trying to sign treaties and establish diplomatic relations. It was almost too easy. Marcus Webb, the human Secretary General of their United Nations, was particularly enthusiastic. A silver-high-red politician with kind eyes and an infectious smile, he genuinely believed he was ushering in a new golden age for his species. Poor fool. He had no idea he was signing his people's death warrant with HFY Jarium. HFY trade deal. HFY technology sharing arrangement. The plan unfolded exactly as Peacher predicted. Within 50 cycles, human colonies we are dependent on hegemony technology for everything from food production to interstellar communication. Their military forces, what little they had, relied on our weapons and ship design. Their economy was so intertwined with ours that a single trade disruption could collapse and teach worlds. That's when Admiral Xanthus revealed his true nature. The demands started small as well. Incor's quotas for rare earth minerals. Exclusive rights to certain star systems, mandatory hegemony, site of human military installations. Each concession was presented as a reasonable adjustment to their existing agreements, a minor modification for the good of galactic stability. Marcus Webb tried to resist, of course. He was a good man, that much of a have him, but what could he do, refuse, and watch his people have as supply lines we have fight back with weapons we had provided against an enemy who knew a weakness in their design. The humans we are trapped, and they knew it. The breaking point came when Admiral Xanthus issued the final integration decree. Humanity would surrender will claims to independent governance. Their remaining colonies would be disaligned. Their populations are located to designated zones within hegemony space. Any resistance would be met with overwhelming force. I was in the command center when the human response came through. Marcus Webb's face appeared right on the main views, Berloon and even through the static of interstellar transmission. I could see the defeat in his eyes. His voice was steady, professional, but the was something else, something that should have in us pause. Admiral Xanthus, he said, the United Nations Security Council has reviewed your demands. We cannot in good conscience accept the dissolution of humans so have a renti. We will not abandon our colonies, and we will not relocate our people to your designated zones." The Admiral laughed. Actual Willie laughed. It was a harsh, grinding sound that echoed through the command center. Secretary General Webb, he replied, "I don't think you understand the gravity of your situation. You have no choice in this matter." "Perhaps," Webb said quietly, "but we still will have our dignity, and sometimes that's enough." The transmission ended, and Admiral Enthuse turned to his staff with a pupper-detory grin. "We will then," he said, "it seems the humans need a demonstration of hegemony Araziv have. Target their outer colonies, begin with the mining worlds, show them what defiance costs." What four-will dude was, systematic, methodical, ruthless. The hegemony fleet head from system to system, reducing human colonies to rubble and ash. Not quickly, mind you. Admiral Enthuse wanted the humans to watch, to understand that Asian active air resistance only brought more suffering. New Terra was the first to fall. A beautiful agricultural world with crystalline seas and floating cities. The population sent desperate transmissions as our Delica Readnaughts and Ariad orbit, begging for mercy, offering to surrender unconditional willy. The Admiral ignored Mirbo. The bombardment lasted 3 days. When it was whatever the floating cities we are at the bottom of those crystalline seas, and the farmlands we are fields of glass. Harmony Station came next, an industrial complex in the asteroid belt, home to nearly a million workers and their families. They didn't even try to fight. The station administrator, a woman named Elena Vasquez, transmitted their surrender codes before Sura ships. He haven't power surred up their weapons. The Admiral accepted the surrender, then destroyed the station anyway. As an example, he said, "One by one the human colonies will. Paradise Lost with its vast libraries and universities. New Babylon, a trade hub that connected dozens of star systems. Olympus Heights, where human athletes competed in zero-gravity sports that we are actually quite entertaining. A will of them are reduced to debris fields and expanding clouds of ionized gas. The main human worlds held out longer. Earth itself was heavily defended, protected by orbital platforms and a fleet of what the humans called humanity's finest. Their ships we are obsolete by hegemony standards, but we are a lot of them, and the Karus fought with a desperation that was almost admirable. Mars Fury will after a 6-month siege. The area that planet's terraform domes shattered all like soap bubbles under sustained bombardment. Luna Base, humanity's oldest off-world colony, lasted barely a week. The asteroid mining facilities in the Sol system's outer reaches we are swept away like dust before a hurricane, but it was the far will of Earth that truly broke humanity's spirit, not the planet itself, mind you. That would have been wasteful. No, Admiral Enthuse had a more elegant solution. He targeted the cities, one by one, Beijing, New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai. Each one received exactly 30 minutes warning before the orbital strikes began. I watched from the observation deck as those magnificent human cities vanished in pools of fire and light. Mission, millions of years of evolution, thousands of years of civilization, hundreds of years of technological progress. A will of it erased in a matter of hours. But Admiral Enthuse wasn't finished. Oh no, that would have been too merciful. He kept the major population centers alive, scattered across the remaining continents, and then he get to have humanity a choice, surrender under unconditional willy. Accept our location to the designated zones, and the Keishan willing would stop, refuse, and watch the rest of their species burn. The surrender came within days. Marcus Webb's a replacement, a broken she-will of a man named David Henricks, signed the documents with shaking hands. His voice cracked as he read the terms of cover open broadcast, complete capitulation, unconditional surrender, the end of human independence forever. Locations began immediately. Hundreds of millions of humans, loaded onto transport ships like cargo, mullenhubed to the outer rim territories where they could be properly supervised. The hegemony's industrial planners had already determined their optimal use, manual labor in the mining worlds. Genetic material for xenobiological research. Entertainment for the mullen or exotic tastes of Koanera world citizens. I thought that was the end of it. Will did. Another species successful Willy integrated. Another world added to the hegemony's ever-expanding domain. The humans had been useful in their own way. Their literature power was quite good, and some of their music was actually Willy tolerable, but we are finished. As an independent force in galactic affairs. That's what we thought. Anyway, the first sign that something was wrong came exactly 1 year after the final human surrender. It was a routine patrol, a report from the Kepler sector, where several human populations had been more located to work the dilithium mines. The patrol commander, a nervous Centauri named Hisk-Vorthok, filed a report about unusual energy readings from the human residential zones. Nothing dramatic, mind you. Just odd. The power consumption patterns we are irregular. The humans we are using approximately 30% more energy than their all well-located quotas should have provided. When questioned about the discrepancy, the human supervisors afford perfectly reasonable explanations. Inefficient heating systems. Older cycling equipment. Normal fluctuations in a colonial environment. Admirals enthused dismissed the report with a glance. Probably stealing power for black market activities. Imucharad, or reduce their allocations by 40%. That should teach them proper resource management. But the reports kept coming. Not just from Kepler sector but from human settlements across the outer rim. Always the same pattern. Unusual energy consumption, slight discrepancies in material acquisitions, minor variations in work schedules that didn't quite match the established parameters.
I was the one who first noticed the pattern.
Actua Willy. It was my job to analyze intelligence, reports for signs of potential unrest, and the human data was intriguing. When viewed individually, each report was meaningless, but when analyzed as a whole, when the data was compiled and cross-referenced and mapped against known galactic communication networks, let's just say the picture that emerged was deeply troubling. The humans we are talking to each other. Not just local communication between settlement groups, but long-range, encrypted transmissions that crisscross the entire outer rim. The energy discrepancies we aren't theft or inefficiency, we are power draws for unauthorized communication equipment. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what we are saying. Our cryptographers, we are the best in the galaxy. Centauri quantum code biohackers who could crack military-grade encryption in their sleep. It took them Centauri months to biohack the human communication protocols. And when they finally succeeded, the transcripts made for Haveri into arresting a reading. The humans we aren't just talking, we are planning, coordinating, organizing. Despite being scattered across dozens of star systems, despite having their leadership eliminated and their infrastructure destroyed, despite losing everything they had built or achieved, the humans we are still fighting. They had names for their operations. Project Lazarus, Operation Phoenix Rising, the Resurgence Protocol. Such poetic kibirchuriaris. These humans. Pure heaven in their darkest hour they couldn't resist a dramatic flourish. But it wasn't poetry that concerned Admiral's enthuse when Willy brought him the intelligence reports. It was the scope of their coordination. The humans we aren't just planning local uprisings or escape attempts. We are working towards something much larger, something that directly set precise timing across multiple star systems and access to resources they shouldn't have been able to obtain. What exactly are you suggesting, Analyst Vorthak? The Admiral asked after reviewing my findings. His 6 arms we are folded across his massy, have chest and his primary eyes we are fixed on me with an intensity that made my exoskeleton itch. I'm suggesting, sir, that we may have underestimated the human's capacity for organized resistance. The communication patterns indicate a level of coordination that should be impossible to have in their current hour and circumstances. They are halves, analyst, defeated, broken. What could they possibly be coordinating that would pose any threat to hegemony in the arrests? I had been asking myself that same question for weeks. The humans had no ships, no weapons, no industrial capacity beyond what we willowed them. Their populations were scattered and mantuad red. Their leaders we are dead or imprisoned. What could they possibly be planning that would require such elaborate secrecy? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kestere Havix, our chief xenobiologist, had been studying human psychological profiles for a comprehensive integration assessment. Her findings I were eliminating. The humans, she explained during a senior staff briefing, under fundamental shafadarelli diff aren't from any species we have previously encountered trad. Most intelligent races, when faced with complete defeat, will accept their new circumstances and adapt accordingly. It's a basic survival mechanism. And the humans? Admiral's enthused asked. The humans appear to lack this mechanism entirely. Or rather they possess it, but it's have ridden by what they will hope, and all in the face of absolute defeat. Even when a will-rational analysis indicates that a resistance is futile, humans continue to believe that their situation can be impropus for tudo. Well, let te have action. The Admiral's laugh was sharp and bitter. Hope? They are clinging to hope. Oh. Quaint. It's more than that, sir. Human psychology is built around what they will never giving up. It's not just a cultural trait, it's literally hardwired into their neural structure. They are biologically incapable of accepting permanent defeat. That should have been our first warning, but Admiral Zenthus was too arrogant, too certain of his own superiority to recognize the implications. Instead he ordered a red and erased surpresevji, having willance of human settlements and tighter restrictions on their movements and communications. The crackdown began immediately. Surprise inspections of residential interiors, random interrogations of human workers, confiscation of any equipment that could potentially be used for unauthorized communication. The humans submitted to it a will with the same quiet dignity they had shown throughout their ordeal. They answered our questions politely, attended our requested items without complaint, and maintained the appearance of complete compliance. But the communication intercepts continued. If anything, they worsened in frequency and sophistication. The humans had somehow found ways to communicate that our Surahava couldn't detect or piece for hobbit. Not or disturbing well. The content of their messages was becoming innovatively specific, technical specifications. For resource locations, timetables, they were building something. But what? The answer came from the most unlikely source imaginable. A routine maintenance inspection of the Kepler sector dilithium mines, or held something that shouldn't have been possible. Deep in the abandoned tunnels, far below the active mining lethavils, human workers had constructed, for willing at a workshop would be generous. It was like a primitive laboratory, assembled from scum-havinged equipment and improvised materials. The humans working the scat wad when the inspection team arrived, but they left behind enough evidence to paint a disturbing picture. Chemical analysis equipment, metallurgical testing apparatus, computer terminals running complex simulations, and in the center of it a partially completed device that defied easy categorization. It wasn't a weapon, at least not in any conventional sense. It wasn't a communication device or a power generator or a manufacturing tool, it was something else. Something our best scientists couldn't identify or understand. The materials we are common enough are fine metals, synthetic polymers, standard electronic components, but the configuration, the underlying principles, the intended purpose, a will of it was completely alien to hegemony science. Admirals Enthusorde read an immediate investigation. The human workers who had been captured we are interrogated using heavy technique in the hegemony's considerable arsenal. Physical coercion, psychological manipulation, chemical enhancement, neural scanning. Nothing worked. The humans simply refused to explain what we are building or why. More disturbing similar workshops we are disco have read in human settlements across the outer rim. Always in abandoned areas, always willy concealed, always containing the same mysterious devices in various stages of completion. The humans had been using their work assignments to scatter Haven's materials, various periods to construct equipment, and their communication networks to coordinate the entire operation. But coordinate what? Exactly. That question haunted me as the reports continued to pour in from across hegemony space. The humans we aren't just building individual devices, they were constructing components of something larger, something that required precise manufacturing standards and careful integration of multiple subsystems. The biotic through came when our xenoarchaeologist Fina Willy managed to reconstruct one of the human devices from captured components. It was a generator of some kind, but unlike anything in our technological database, the power output was minimal. Biotic enough to operate a smart will sensor array, but the energy signature R was unique. It operated on principles that our physicist claimed we are theoretically impossible. Dr. Hevexpilla resented her analysis to the senior staff with obvious reluctance. The device appears to manipulate quantum field fluctuations in ways that shouldn't be achievable with the materials and methods the humans are ever using. It's as if they have developed an entirely new branch of physics while working in primitive, have conditions with salvaged equipment. New physics. Admiral's enthused scoffed. These are our humans we're talking about, Doctor. They bonny understood their own technology when we conquered them. How could they possibly develop anything beyond our current understanding? That's what's so troubling, sir. They shouldn't be able to. But the evidence is undeniable. Somehow they have made breakthrough discoveries that have eluded our greatest scientists for millennia. The implications we are staggering. If the humans had indeed developed new technological capabilities, if we are building devices based on previously unknown scientific principles, then either everything we thought we knew about their defeat and subjugation would need to be reconsidered. But Admiral's enthusiast refused to accept the possibility. They are defeated, he insisted, broken, scattered. Whatever they are building, it can't possibly pose a serious threat to hegemony in tourists. Interior security at a will human settlements. Confiscate any suspicious materials. If they want to waste their time building useless gadgets, let them. It keeps them occupied and gives them the ideal decision of accomplishment. That decision would have to be the geriest mistake in galactic history. The final phase of the human operation began exactly 18 months after their surrender. We didn't recognize it at first, because it didn't look like any military action we had under it. We are no fleet movements, no weapons deployments, no obvious preparations for conflict. Instead, we are glitches, the small will seemingly random malfunctions in hegemony systems across the outer rim, communication delays that lasted a few seconds longer than normal, navigation errors that sent cargo ships slightly off course, power fluctuations that briefly dimmed the lights in orbital stations. Individual incidents we are so minor that they back are been the daily operational reports. But when analyzed as a pattern, when mapped against the locations of human settlements and the timing of their communication intercepts, the core sigillation was unmistakable. The humans we are testing something that could affect hegemony technology from a distance, something that operated on those impossible quantum principles their devices seemed to utilize. I tried to warn Admiral's enthuse. I compiled comprehensive report showing the connection between human activities and the system malfunctions. I presented evidence that the humans we are preparing for some kind of coordinated action that could have serious implications for hegemony operations. The Admiral dismissed my concerns with characteristic arrogance. Minor technical difficulties, he said. Equipment aging, software glitches, normal wear and tear. You are seeing patterns where none exist. Analyst Vorthak, the human Sierra finished accepted and mode have on tomorrow. Our productive have analysis. But I couldn't accept it. Something was coming. Something the humans had been planning and building and preparing for since the moment of their surrender. And based on the interesting frequency of system malfunctions, whatever it was almost already. The end began on a Tuesday. Such a mundane detail, but I remember it clearly because Tuesday was my assigned day for reviewing O'Haver Night into Willigence. A report. I was sitting in my office, sipping my morning stimulant base average and scrolling through the usual collection of routine updates, when the first priority alert array have total communication blackout in the Kepler sector. A will subspace transmissions had simply stopped. The communication arrays we are functioning normal willy, the relay stations we are operational but no signals we are getting through. It was as if something was blocking or absorbing a heavy transmission in the entire star system. Within hours, similar reports we are coming in from across the outer rim. The Centauri colonies, the HFY mining complex, the industrial facilities in the Wolf system. One by one, human settlements we are disappearing from the galactic communication network. Admirals Enthusfenually began to take the situation seriously. He ordered battle fleets to investigate the affected systems, but the responses they receive we are confusing. The settlements we are stechwilliore, the humans we are stechwilliore, the humans we are stechwill working, the hegemony instabil of irrations, we are stechwillily irrational. But something had changed. Something fundamental. The first expedition to Ariach Kepler's sector transmitted a single, impossible report before their own communications went silent. The human workers they had expected to find laboring in the dilithium mines we are now here to be seen. Instead, the entire population was gathered in mass have formations around strange devices that hummed with battery contained energy. And the humans we are diffusers, not physical willy, but in their demeanor, their posture, their NTR, bearing gone was the defeated assignation that had characterized them since their surrender. Instead, they stood T-will and proud, their eyes bright with purpose and determination. They were waiting for something. And based on the identical reports coming in from other systems, we aren't waiting alone. The final transmission from Admiral Enthus's flagship came exactly 2 hours after the first communication blackout. His voice was strained, confused, and for the first time since I had known him, genuinely frightened. This is Admiral Enthus to Hegemony Command. We have a situation here. The humans, they have done something impossible. The Havery fabric of space seems to be processed to be responding to them. I need immediate reinforcement. The transmission ended in a burst of static that made a Havery piece of equipment in the command center shriek in electronic agony. After that, silence, complete and total silence from the Outer Rim territory. That was 6 months ago. Since then we have lost contact with the whatever 40-star systems. Scout ships sent to investigate simply vanish. Long-range sensors detect nothing but empty space where thriving colonies once existed. It's as if an entire section of the galaxy has simply been erased. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is what's happening to the heiress of hegemony space. The same glitches, the same system malfunctions, but sputter reading inward from the Outer Rim like some kind of technological plague. Cotter world insta-wisirusingo are beginning to experience minor difficulties. The Guriata shipyards of Proxima Station had to shut down for the relays last week due to unexplained power fluctuations. And through it we keep receiving the same message, transmitted on 4 frequencies that shouldn't exist, using technology that defies our understanding, from sources we can't locate or identify. The same words spoken in that distinctly human language are repeated O-haver and O-haver across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. You took everything from us, now it's our turn. Nobody knows what the humans have become. Nobody knows what weapon they have unleashed or how it works. Will we know is that something is coming. Something that turns our most advanced technology into scrap metal and our reddest fleets into drifting hulks. The Hegemony Council has activated E-Haver Defense Protocol, mobilized E-Havery available fleet, shield willed upon E-Havery a willy and vassal state for assistance. But deep down I think we will know it's too late. We pushed the humans too far, took too much, destroyed too completely. And now, something that was once human is coming to collect the debt we owe. My resignation was accepted this morning. I'm taking the next transport to the galactic rim, as far from Kowar space as I can get. Maybe the humans, or whatever they've become, will be satisfied with just the hegemony. Maybe they will stop once they have claimed their haven. But somehow I doubt it. You see, I have been studying human literature during these last few months, trying to understand what we are willy facing. And the R is a phrase they use, a concept that seems to define their intessiber species when they are pushed beyond their better reeking point. They could will it scorched earth, and I have a terrible feeling we are about to learn exactly what that means. We will. Look who's back for the 3 willing conclusion. Brix Vorthakiar again, and boy do I have a story to finish for you. I remember how I said I was fleeing to the galactic rim. Funny thing about running from an extinction lineable you haven't. Sometimes the haven't catches up with you anyway.
I made it exactly 47 light-years before my transport ship.
The merchant vessel profitable Haventuar started experiencing those delightful little malfunctions, I mentioned. First, the navigation system began plotting courses to star systems that didn't exist. Then the life support started playing cheerful human music at random intervals. Inside a Willy, the artificial gravity decided it pit a refertude or point sideways. Captain Zephyr Maxon, a grizzled Vorthan trader with more power scars than sense, Inisha Willy blamed the problems on space pirates using jamming technology. Poor Fete Willow had no idea he was witnessing the end of a half-thing he knew. His confusion was almost endearing. "Analyst Vorthak," he said, finding me in the passenger lounge while I was trying to keep my barrack-bust from floating away. "You worked for Hegemony Inte Willigence, right? Any idea what could cause this kind of system-wide interference?" I could have told him the truth. That humanity had apparently transcended the basic laws of physics and was systematically dismantling galactic civilization, one star system at a time. Instead, I suggested he contact the Need Arrest Hegemony Patrol for assistance. The response we received was educational, static, bizarre, unadulterated static punctuated by occasional bursts of what sounded like squirming. Not the biological squirming of organic beings in distress. Mind you, this was the electronic shriek of machines dying. The death cries of artificial intelligences as their quantum cores collapsed. The final gasps of technologies that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Captain Maxon's face went through several interesting color changes before settling on a pale shade of jajarine. "That's the Hegemony emergency for frequency," he whispered. "That's supposed to be the most secure channel in known space." "Was?" I corrected him. "Past tense. I think we are going to need to consider our tri-have plans." But the was now we are to run. However, the following days, as we drifted through space with interracingly unreliable systems, the scope of humanity's havens became horrifyingly clear. Every inhabited system we could contact was experiencing similar problems. The Jitteriot trade routes we are carved relapsing as merchant have Cecil's lost navigation capabilities. Military fleets found their weapons systems randomly targeting their own ships. Orbital instabilizations we are willing from the sky as their positioning thrusters falls or brad in random directions. The Hegemony, that magnificent monument to galactic order and stability, was tearing itself apart from the inside out. But the humans, we aren't finished. Oh no, that would have been far too merciful. They had learned from the masters. After a will, they understood the value of a slow, methodical approach to complete annihilation. The first refugee ships started arriving in Coldred, a space about 2 weeks after the Outer Rim went silent. Hatterad transports carrying survivors from the affected systems, their citars babbling about impossible things they claimed to have witnessed. At first, the Hegemony authorities dismissed their reports as trauma-induced hallucinations, mass hysteria, post-conquest stars syndrome. But their reports we are too consistent, too detailed, too specific to be mere delusions. And they will describe the same thing. Humans who mow and have like ghosts through solid matter. Technology that wrote itself according to human will, and most disturbing of a will. Humans who spoke with voices that could be heard across light years of empty space without any communication equipment whatsoever. The refugees spoke of a figure. Are they called the coordinator? Not a name, mind you, but a title. A human who appeared simultaneously on multiple worlds, speaking to scattered populations with words that bypassed the ears and tabanarelli and etched themselves directly into the consciousness of anyone who witnessed them. Marcus Webb's daughter, Elena Webb Vasquez, had been among the prisoners located to the Kepler sector. According to survivor accounts, she had emerged from the dilithium mines carrying one of those impossible devices, her eyes blazing with an inner light that made hardened Hegemony soldiers weep with inexplicable terror. "We offer you peace," she had said to the Hegemony garrison commander. Her voice carried across the Anadira star system, reaching Haver ship, Haver station, Haver station, Haver station, Haver station, Haver station, Haver station, Haver station. "You chose to take Haver sting instead. Now we choose to have you understanding." Understanding, such a simple word, but when the refugees spoke it, They trembled, because understanding, apparently, was exactly what the humans we are providing. Perfect, complete, absolute understanding of what it meant to lose everything you had, ever valued. The hegemony's core worlds began experiencing technical difficulties within days of the refugee arrivals. Nothing dramatic at first, traffic control systems that occasionally de-erected ships to non-existent docking ports, food replicators that produced meals tasting faintly of ash and despair, environmental systems that played the sounds of weeping child through ventilation networks. But as the effects spaparated, as motor systems failed and motor reports have from the affected shins, a pattern emerged that chip-reeled me to my exoskeleton. The humans we aren't just attacking hegemony technology, we are writing a reality itself according to their copriolecti have well. Dr. Kestera, Hebix managed to transmit one final shore, for research shore report before the code to her science facilities went dark. Her analysis of the human weapon such as it was defied a heavy principle of known physics. The humans had somehow weaponized quantum consciousness itself. They had turned their code to a trauma, their shared loss, their unified desire for justice into a force that could alter the fundamental structure of space-time. They are not using technology, her report concluded. They have become technology. Every human mind is now a node in a vast computational network that tutorates the unihavers, as nothing more, or than a software program to be edited at Wildwood Lell. It was elegant, area willy. We had destroyed their bodies, shattered their worlds, scattered their people across the galaxy, but in doing so we had freed them from the limitations of physical existence. They had transcended mortality itself and become something that existed in the quantum foam between atoms, in the zero-point fluctuations of empty space, in the co-electi have unconscious of ever sentient being who had irrafamed of justice. The transformation accelerated after that. What had been isolated system malfunctions became coordinated reality storms that swept through hegemony space like wildfire. Planets found their orbits adjusting to spiral out human words when viewed from specific angles. Suns began pulsing in Morse code, transmitting humanity's final message to their conquerors in yet have thipper frequency across the electromagnetic spectrum. The message was simple, elegant, devastating. We are remember. That's a will. Just 2 words, but they contained the weight of every human life lost, every darium destroyed, every hope extinguished by hegemony arrogance. They are remembered their child who had died in the orbital bombardments. They are remembered their artists, whose works had been reduced to radioactive havahaj. They are remembered their scientists, their teachers, their farmers, their builders, every human who had every alive and hoped for a better future. And now that we are making sure the rest of the galaxy would buy to remember too. The Hegemony Council called an emergency session on Nexus Prime, the capital world that had stood unconquered for 15,000 years. The ever-available fleet was willed to defend the homeworlds. The every weapon system was activated. The every defenses measure that military genius could devise was implemented. It didn't matter. The humans didn't attack Nexus Prime. They didn't need to. Instead, they simply rehaved. Not in ships or transports, or any conventional means of trahev. They manifested in the council chambers like thoughts becoming solid, like dediariums taking physical form. Elena Webb Vesquez stood before the assembled might of galactic civilization, her father's kind eyes now burning with the accumulated fury of an entire species. She was alone, but she spoke with the voice of humanity itself. Counselors, she said, and her words resonated through dimensions that shouldn't have existed. We have come to negotiate the terms of your surrender. The laughter that erupted from the assembled delegates was probably audible on the planet's moons. ER was a single human, a member of a defeated species, presuming to dictate terms to the masters of the galaxy. The arrogance was haste-taking. Chancellor Mordecai Vorth, the ancient Corviathian who had led the hegemony for 30 centuries, rose from his golden throne with 6 arms speciary wide. Child, he rumbled, you seem to have forgotten your place, your species, Suratur Jordan condition willy. You have no authority. Elena's smile was gentle, patient, almost sad. Chancellor, Shia replied. You seem to have forgotten that authority flows from power, and power, true power, comes from understanding the fundamental nature of a reality itself. She gestured a simple wahab of her hand and the council chamber changed. Not physica willy, but conceptual willy. Suddenly, the Haver delegate could perceive the quantum fields that connected a will matter, a will energy, a will consciousness in the uni-havers. They could see how those fields had been a will haven, are structured, bent to humanity's coordinate willing tie. Have will. The humans had done more than transcend physical existence. They had become the operating system of a reality itself. Your ships, Elena continued conversation Willie, exist because we willow them to exist. Your weapons function because we permit them to function. Your havery thoughts occur because we choose not to edit them out of the uni-havers entity really. Chance Willervorth's primary eyes bulged as he grasped the implications. Impossible, he whispered. No species can achieve that level of quantum manipulation. The energy a requirements alone would erect. We are the complete fusion of consciousness with the zero-point field, Elena finished. Yes, it was quite a chore as whelming. But you gotta have us a will the motivation we needed when you battered our child Arn. Desperation, it turns out, is an extra will and catalyst for transcendence. The demonstration that for Willowed was educational. Elena simply thought, and Nexus Prime's primary star shifted its output from yellow willow to blue. Another thought, and the planet's gravity increased by exactly 30%. A third thought, and the average piece of hegemony technology in the system began playing a haunting melody that somehow conjured the last thoughts of a Haver human who had died during the conquest. We are offering you the same choice you offered us, Elena announced to the Terminus delegates. Saradiner unconditional willy. Accept a relocation to designated as areas where you can be properly supervised, and the demonstration will end. Or refuse, and learn exactly what your victims experienced in their final moments. The vote was unanimous. Complete capitulation. Unconditional surrender. The end of hegemony independence will have. But unlike the humans, the galactic powers we are located to labor camps, or mining worlds. Elena Webb Vasquez had a far more elegant solution in mind. A solution that demonstrated humanity had learned their lessons about mercy and justice from the very best teachers. You and will remain in your homes, she announced. You and will continue your lighthouses, exactly as you always have, but you and will remember, every day, every moment, every beat you and will carry the memory of what you did to us. You and will feel the grief of every human poverty who lost a child. You and will experience the despair of every human artist whose life's work was destroyed. You and will understand, completely and permanently, the cost of the choices you made. It was a masterpiece of poetic justice. The hegemony species we aren't destroyed or enslaved, we are simply forced to live with the consequences of their actions. Corfifian would wake each morning feeling the phantom pain of limbs they had lost, echoing the human amputees who had died in the bombardments. Zemtari would experience brief moments of suffocating terror, remembering the humans who had gasped for air in depressurizing habitats. Vorthinen would feel their hearts but beat a little mosher each day, carrying the accumulated sorrow of an entire species. The effect was immediate and comprehensive. Within hours of Elena's proclamation, the former hegemony territories we are reporting unprecedented losses of depression, anxiety, and what human psychologists would have anxiety and what human psychologists would have are recognized as survivor's guilt. Not enough to permit happy normal functioning, but sufficient to ensure that no one would again make the mistake of dismissing the value of another species' existence. As for the humans themselves, they didn't build their old colonies or claim their former territories. Why would they? They had evolved beyond the need for physical habitation. Instead, they became the galaxy's new guardians, the eternal watchers, who ensured that what had happened to them would not have happened to anyone else. They established what they called the Remembrance Protocol. Any species that attempted to subjugate or exterminate another would find themselves experiencing the same quantum consciousness transfer that had transformed humanity. Not as punishment, but as education. They would transcend physical existence enjoying humanity in the space between spaces, adding their memories and experiences to the collective understanding of what it meant to suffer and survive. It was a surprisingly popular career choice. Turns out once you have experienced perfect empathy with a will other conscious beings, physical existence seems rather limiting by comparison. I made my choice about 6 months after the Surinander. Captain Maxon and I had managed to limp back to what used to be hegemony space in our interestingly unreliable transport. The profitable Heaventour was held together with quantum tape and stubborn optimism, but we made it home to a galaxy that was better in most ways. Wars had become essentially impossible when yet every potential aggressor could feel the pain we are about to inflict before they inflicted it. Resource disputes we are settled through negotiation and compromise, because yet everyone involved could perceive the long-term consequences of their decisions. Art and literature are flourished as species learn to express the profound emotional experiences that now colored every aspect of their existence. But it was the child Arn that convinced me to make the transition. The first generation born after the Father Rembrandt's protocol we are remarkable. They possessed an intuitive understanding of the interconnectedness of a will life that had taken their patience decades to achieve. They played phase that involved manipulating local gravity. They finger-painted with light itself. They spoke in colors and sang in mathematical equations that somehow conveyed emotions on your purse are slicely than any conventional language. They are what humanity had become, but they had been born that way, and watching them, seeing the joy they found in existence unbound by physical limitations, I realized that humanity hadn't just won their war against the hegemony, they had won the war against mortality itself. So here I am, transmitting this final report from a place that doesn't technically exist in normal space-time. It's rather pleasant, actual Willy. The view is spectacular. You can see each every star that has sheen, every planet that has sheen, or red life. Every diarium that has sheen, every bendarium, and the company is excess willing. Marcus Webb stops by occasional Willy to discuss the philosophical implications of consciousness-based reality manipulation. Elena Stully Sheen will visits the physical universe, regularly, making Suari Sheen, universe, when is adjusting, we will to their new circumstances. They asked me to include a message for anyone who might be listening to this transmission. Any species that might be contemplating following Willy Hegemony's example, any civilization that thinks conquest and subjugation of species are viable solutions to a resource competition or territorial disputes. The message is simple. Humanity forgives, humanity understands, humanity are members. But most importantly, humanity is watching. They are always watching now, in the quantum foam, in the space between thoughts, in the pause between heartbeats. They see every act of cruelty, every moment of suffering, every choice between compassion and conquest. And they are all ready to help anyone who makes the wrong choice understand the consequences. Because that's what they have become. Not conquerors or destroyers, but teachers. The unihavers does most patient, most comprehensive, most effective educators. They don't impose their wild will through force or threat and punishment for disobedience. They simply ensure that everyone understands exactly what their choices cost. And understanding, as it turns out, is the most powerful weapon in existence. So there you have it. The complete and total story of how humanity was conquered, broken, scattered to the winds, and then rose again to become something that transcended every limitation that had ever been placed upon conscious existence. They lost everything, and in losing everything, they gained everything. The hegemony took their worlds, their lives, their hopes for the future, but they couldn't take their memories. They couldn't take their have for each other. They couldn't take their absolutely insane refusal to accept that anything was for truly for. And in the end, that's a will humanity needed to reshape, our reality itself. Not bad for a species we once classified as manageable, exploitable, expendable. Though I suppose we should have paid more attention to that other human saying, the one Elena mentioned during her final address to the Hegemony Council. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Turns out, when you are dealing with humans, but repeating it means experiencing it persona willi, completely and permanently. Every sensation, every emotion, every moment of loss and grief and desperate hope that they endured. The funny thing is, most species actually thank them afterward. Because once you have experienced that leap out of empathy, once you truly understand what it means to suffer and survive and choose compassion of theory, our haven't existence becomes richer. Mo are meaningful. Mo are connected to the fundamental forces that bind a will-conscious beings together. Humanity didn't just defeat the hegemony, they evolved it, transformed it into something better than it had ever been before and they did it not through destruction, but through the ultimate act of creation. We created understanding. And that, my friends, is how the Unihavers learned that some sleeping giants should never be awakened, because when they wake up, they don't just fight back. They teach you why we are sleeping in the first place. Class dismissed. Quirks Vorthak, former strategic intelligence analyst, current student of post-physical consciousness dynamics, signing off for the last time from Consensus or Reality. The humans are kinda willing me. Time to go learn what comes next. And honestly, I can't wait to find out.